My wife took everything in the divorce. The house I spent 12 years paying for. My life savings, my car, even my doll. When I walked into that courtroom, I had already accepted that I was going to lose everything I had worked for. My ex-wife sat across from me wearing a confident smile, convinced she had already won. Her lawyer looked relaxed. Mine looked worried. The judge quietly flipped through the case files, preparing to make a decision that would change both of our lives forever. Then, something unexpected happened. The judge opened one forgotten email. He read the first sentence, then the second. His expression changed instantly. The entire courtroom became so quiet that you could hear someone breathing. My ex-wife's confident smile disappeared. Her lawyer froze. And for the first time in months, I realized the truth had finally arrived. Stay with me until the very end, because what happened next shocked everyone in that courtroom. And if you enjoy powerful stories of betrayal, justice, and life-changing twists, don't forget to subscribe to Leon Drama Stories. We bring you emotional stories that prove the truth always finds its way. Now, let's begin. My name is Daniel Carter. For 12 years, I believed I had built the kind of life people dream about. A beautiful wife, a comfortable home, a successful career. Friends often told me how lucky I was. Whenever someone said, "You two are the perfect couple," Sarah would smile, squeeze my hand, and lean her head against my shoulder. I believed every second of it. Maybe that's why betrayal hurts so much. It doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people you trust with your entire heart. Sarah and I met when we were both 26. She worked at a local bookstore. I was an accountant at a construction company. She loved novels. I loved numbers. She laughed at everything. I worried about everything. Somehow, we balanced each other perfectly. At least, that's what I thought. After dating for 3 years, we got married in a small ceremony surrounded by our closest family and friends. Nothing extravagant, nothing flashy, just promises. Promises that neither of us imagined would someday be broken. As the years passed, my career grew. I accepted promotions, worked late nights, skipped vacations, missed birthdays, not because I wanted to, but because I believed I was building a better future for us. Every paycheck went toward our dreams: the mortgage, investments, retirement savings, emergency funds. I never minded working harder because I believed everything belonged to both of us. Sarah often thanked me. She'd kiss me before work and tell me, "I'm proud of everything you're doing for us." Those words kept me going through every stressful day. Looking back now, I wonder if she ever truly meant them. People always ask if there were warning signs. The truth? There usually are. We just don't recognize them until it's too late. At first, they were so small that I ignored them. Sarah became protective of her phone. She started smiling at messages, but quickly locking the screen whenever I walked into the room. She spent more time going out with friends. Weekend shopping trips suddenly lasted 6 or 7 hours. When I asked where she'd been, she'd answer quickly before changing the subject. I wanted to ask more questions. Instead, I convinced myself that marriage required trust. And trust meant not acting suspicious over every little thing. That was my biggest mistake. A few months later, she suggested we separate our finances. She said it would make budgeting easier. It sounded reasonable, so I agreed. Again, without asking too many questions. Then she encouraged me to transfer some investments into joint ownership. "It'll make estate planning easier," she explained. I signed the paperwork without reading every detail. Why would I? She was my wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone else in the world. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Nothing felt unusual. I had just finished a meeting with one of our biggest clients. My phone buzzed. I expected another work email. Instead, it was a message from Sarah. Only 4 words. "We need to talk." My stomach tightened immediately. I called her. She didn't answer. I texted back. No response. I left work early and drove home. As soon as I pulled into the driveway, I knew something wasn't right. Her car was there, but the front door was already open. When I stepped inside, I noticed several moving boxes stacked near the entrance. The living room looked half empty. Family photos had disappeared from the walls. Drawers were open. Closets had been cleared. Sarah walked downstairs carrying another box. She looked at me without smiling. No tears, no sadness, no emotion, just cold. "I've hired a lawyer," she said. For a moment, I honestly thought she was joking. Then she placed a thick envelope on the kitchen counter. "I've filed for divorce." Those 5 words hit harder than anything I'd ever experienced. "What?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she folded her arms and looked directly into my eyes. "I can't do this anymore." I searched her face for any sign that this was some terrible misunderstanding. There was none. "What happened?" I asked quietly. "Did I do something wrong?" She shook her head. "We've grown apart." "That's it?" I asked. 12 years together. "And that's all you have to say?" Her eyes never changed. No guilt, no hesitation, nothing. "I've already made my decision." I looked around our home, the home we'd built together. Suddenly, it no longer felt like mine. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. Every page made my heart sink a little further. She wasn't just asking for a divorce. She wanted everything. The house, the retirement accounts, the investments, my savings, spousal support, even full ownership of Max, our golden retriever. I looked up in disbelief. "Sarah, this has to be some kind of mistake." She simply replied, "My lawyer says it's fair." Fair? How was taking everything fair? I had spent over a decade working 60-hour weeks to build our future. Now, it felt like someone had erased my entire life with the stroke of a pen. And the worst part? I still loved her enough to hope this wasn't real. I still believed we could sit down, talk, fix whatever had gone wrong. I had no idea. The real nightmare hadn't even begun. For the next few days, I barely slept. Every room in the house reminded me of Sarah. Her favorite coffee mug was still in the kitchen. Her books still filled the shelves. Even the blanket we used while watching movies together was folded neatly on the couch. It was strange. The house was full of her belongings, but somehow it had never felt emptier. I kept asking myself the same question over and over again. How does someone wake up one morning and suddenly stop loving the person they promised forever to? No matter how hard I searched for an answer, I couldn't find one. Until the first letter from her attorney arrived. The envelope was thicker than the divorce papers. Inside were pages filled with accusations. Not facts, accusation. According to Sarah, I had emotionally abandoned her. I had controlled all of our finances. I cared more about work than my marriage. I had made her feel trapped for years. Every sentence felt like a punch to the chest. Was I a perfect husband? No. I worked too much. I missed anniversaries. Sometimes I brought my stress home from the office. But everything I did because I believed I was providing for our future. Never once had I imagined those sacrifices would someday be used against me. That night, I called the only divorce attorney my friend recommended. His name was Michael Reynolds. As soon as he finished reading the documents, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "This isn't going to be easy." I swallowed hard. "How bad is it?" He looked me straight in the eyes. "If everything she's claiming is believed by the court, you could lose almost everything." Those words echoed in my mind long after I left his office. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of losing the life I had spent 12 years building. Over the following weeks, the legal battle became uglier than I ever imagined. Every email from my attorney brought more bad news. Sarah wanted temporary possession of the house. Approved. She requested financial support during the proceedings. Approved. She asked for exclusive use of one of our investment accounts. Also approved. Every hearing felt like another piece of my life slipping away. Friends started choosing sides. Some stopped answering my calls altogether. Others believed Sarah's version without ever asking for mine. One afternoon, I walked into my favorite coffee shop. A couple I had known for years saw me. Instead of saying hello, they looked away, like I was someone to be ashamed of. Rumors spread quickly. Apparently, I was now the husband who had neglected his wife, the man who only cared about money. None of it was true, but once people hear a story often enough, they begin treating it like a fact. Then came mediation. My lawyer hoped we could settle without going to trial. Sarah arrived wearing an expensive designer suit. She looked confident, almost cheerful, as though she wasn't ending a marriage, but closing a successful business deal. She didn't even look at me. Her attorney pushed a folder across the table. "These are our settlement terms." I opened it. My heart nearly stopped. Sarah wanted the house, both cars, nearly 70% of our savings, half my retirement account, monthly alimony, and sole ownership of Max. Even my lawyer stared at the papers for a moment before shaking his head. "This isn't a settlement. It's surrender." Sarah calmly folded her hands. "You should take it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You honestly think this is fair?" She shrugged. "You'll recover. You always do." Those words hurt more than the financial demands, because I realized something. She wasn't just trying to leave me. She was trying to erase me. As the mediation ended without an agreement, I finally asked the question that had haunted me for weeks. "Sarah." She paused near the door. I looked directly at her. Was any of it real? The vacations, our wedding, the nights we stayed awake planning our future, the promises. Did any of it actually matter to you? For just a second, her face softened. I thought I saw regret. Then it disappeared. She looked at me with complete indifference. "People change, Daniel." And then she walked away without looking back. A month later, the official court hearings began. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Cold, silent, unforgiving. Judge Eleanor Brooks entered the room. Everyone stood. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my notebook. Sarah sat across from me. Perfect posture, perfect makeup, perfect confidence. If someone had walked into that courtroom without knowing us, they would have assumed she was the victim. Her attorney began presenting their case. He described Sarah as a loyal wife who had spent years supporting her husband while receiving nothing in return. He claimed I had become obsessed with money, that I ignored her emotionally, that I controlled every financial decision. Listening to him, you'd think I was a monster. Then Sarah took the witness stand. She wiped away tears, looked at the judge, and began speaking in a trembling voice. There were nights when I cried myself to sleep, because my husband cared more about spreadsheets than he cared about me. The courtroom was silent. Some people in the audience nodded sympathetically. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Yes, I had worked long hours, but I had never stopped loving my wife. Never. She continued. I sacrificed everything for our marriage. I deserve a fresh start. When she finished, even my attorney looked concerned. He leaned toward me and whispered, "She's convincing." I stared at the floor. For the first time, I wondered if the truth would even matter. Because sometimes, the better story wins, not the real one. As the judge announced a recess before my testimony, I noticed Sarah smiling quietly at her lawyer. It wasn't the smile of someone seeking justice. It was the smile of someone who believed victory was already hers. And at that moment, I honestly believed she was right. I had no idea that hidden somewhere in the past. When court recessed for the day, I drove home in complete silence. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't answer my phone. I just replayed every word Sarah had said. The tears, the trembling voice, the heartbreaking story. To anyone watching, she looked like the victim, and I looked like the man who had destroyed her life. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I felt defeated. I walked through the front door, dropped my briefcase on the floor, and sat alone in the dark living room. For the first time in my life, I seriously considered giving up. Maybe I should just accept the settlement. Maybe fighting wasn't worth it anymore. Then my phone rang. It was Michael. "Daniel," he said, "I know today was rough, but before tomorrow's hearing, I need every financial record you can find. Old bank statements, tax returns, emails, investment records. Anything that helps us establish a complete timeline. I've already given you everything." "I know," he replied. "But sometimes the smallest detail changes a case. Search everything again." At the time, I thought he was just trying to keep my spirits up. I had no idea those words would save my life. Around midnight, I carried an old storage box down from the attic. Inside were dusty folders, old hard drives, photo albums, and my first laptop, the one I had used years before buying my current computer. The battery was dead. After searching for nearly 20 minutes, I finally found the charger buried inside another box. The laptop took forever to start. Its fan made a terrible grinding noise. For a moment, I thought it wouldn't even turn on. Then the old desktop appeared. I smiled. It felt like opening a time capsule. There were pictures from vacations, wedding photos, receipts, old work files, thousands of forgotten memories. I spent nearly 2 hours searching through folders, tax documents, mortgage records, insurance files. Nothing helpful. Finally, I opened my old email account. I hadn't logged into it in years. There were over 18,000 unread promotional emails. I almost closed it. Then something caught my attention. An archived folder. I didn't even remember creating it. Curious. I clicked. Hundreds of old emails appeared. Most were completely ordinary. Utility bills, shopping receipts, travel confirmation. Then, one subject line froze me in place. "Don't worry, he'll never know." I frowned. I didn't recognize it. The sender wasn't familiar either. The email was dated nearly 3 years earlier. Without thinking, I opened it. At first, it didn't make much sense. It was part of a longer conversation. The sender was someone named Emily, one of Sarah's closest friends. Emily had written, "Are you sure this is the right thing to do?" Below that was Sarah's reply. I began reading slowly. The first few lines seemed harmless. Then I reached a paragraph that made my heart stop. "Daniel trusts me completely. He's already transferred most of the investments into our joint names. If I wait a little longer, there'll be even more." I blinked. Surely, I was misunderstanding. I kept reading. The next sentence hit even harder. "When I finally file for divorce, he'll never see it coming." My hands started shaking. I read the sentence again and again. It was right there, written in plain English. Not something I imagined, not something taken out of context. She had written it herself. I scrolled further down. The next paragraph was even worse. "The court usually sides with the wife. As long as I stay calm and tell my story, I'll walk away with almost everything." I couldn't breathe. Every accusation, every tear, every performance in that courtroom had been planned years in advance. I kept scrolling. There was one final sentence. The sentence that changed everything. "He'll probably think I still love him until the day I hand him the divorce papers." I leaned back in my chair. Suddenly, every strange moment over the past 3 years made sense. The separate bank accounts, the joint ownership transfers, the sudden shopping trips, the fake smiles, the cold goodbye. None of it had been spontaneous. It had been preparation. I immediately called Michael. It was nearly 2 in the morning. He answered on the third ring. "Daniel, is everything okay? I found something." "What is it?" I think I found emails." There was a pause. "What kind of emails?" "I don't know, but I think Sarah planned this years ago." His voice instantly changed. "Don't touch anything." "What?" "Don't forward them. Don't delete anything. Don't even print them yet." I'll be at your house in 30 minutes. Exactly 32 minutes later, Michael pulled into my driveway. He walked inside, carrying a laptop, an external hard drive, and a folder full of legal documents. I showed him the emails. He didn't say a word while reading. His expression grew more serious with every sentence. When he finally finished, he looked at me. Daniel, I think we've just found the reason she's been so confident. You mean? He nodded. If these emails are authentic, this isn't just a divorce case anymore. This is evidence that she may have intentionally misrepresented her motives and manipulated financial decisions long before filing. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't experienced since the divorce began. Hope. Real hope. But Michael quickly raised a hand. Don't celebrate yet. My smile disappeared. Why not? Because finding evidence isn't enough. We have to prove it's genuine. And if her legal team sees this coming, they'll do everything possible to keep it out of court. The next morning, Michael contacted a digital forensic specialist, someone who specialized in recovering and authenticating electronic evidence. The expert spent hours examining the laptop, the email headers, the timestamps, the server records, every tiny digital detail. By late afternoon, the report arrived. Michael read it carefully before looking up at me. His face broke into the first genuine smile I'd seen in months. It's real. Every single email. No edits. No manipulation. No fabrication. They're authentic. I closed my eyes. Relief washed over me. After months of being called a liar, the truth finally had a voice. But neither of us knew. The biggest shock was still waiting, because tomorrow morning, the judge would read those emails for the very first time, and nothing in that courtroom would ever be the same again. The next morning, I stood outside the courthouse nearly an hour before the hearing. The air was cold. My hands were stuffed into my pockets, not because of the weather, but because I couldn't stop them from shaking. For weeks, I had walked into that building feeling like a man already defeated. Today felt different, not because I was certain I would win, but because, for the first time, I wasn't walking in empty-handed. Michael arrived carrying a black briefcase. Inside was the forensic report, printed copies of the emails, and enough evidence to prove they had never been altered. He looked at me and smiled. No matter what happens today, you finally have the truth on your side. I nodded. For the first time in months, I believed him. Sarah arrived a few minutes later. She looked exactly the way she had at every hearing. Confident, perfectly dressed, completely relaxed. She barely acknowledged me. Instead, she whispered something to her attorney, and the two of them laughed. Seeing that smile used to make me angry. Today, it only reminded me of something. She still had no idea what was about to happen. Everyone stood as Judge Eleanor Brooks entered the courtroom. The hearing began exactly as the previous ones had. Sarah's attorney repeated the same arguments. He spoke about emotional neglect, financial control, years of unhappiness. Sarah nodded at every word. Then Michael stood. Your Honor, we have recently discovered evidence that was previously unknown to both parties. Sarah's attorney immediately objected. Your Honor, this evidence was not introduced during discovery. Michael remained calm. The evidence was only discovered 2 days ago on an archived device. We have provided the opposing counsel with copies immediately upon verification, along with a certified forensic report confirming its authenticity. The judge adjusted her glasses. I'll review the material. Michael handed the folder to the court clerk. The courtroom fell silent. The judge slowly opened the file. She turned the first page, then the second. Then she reached the emails. She began reading. The room became so quiet. You could hear the pages turning. I watched her expression change. Her eyebrows tightened. Then she stopped reading. She looked directly at Sarah. Mrs. Carter, did you write these emails? Sarah's confidence disappeared for the first time. She looked toward her attorney. He leaned over and whispered something. Finally, she answered, I don't remember. The judge didn't react. Instead, she continued reading aloud. Daniel trusts me completely. Sarah lowered her eyes. Another page. When I finally file for divorce, he'll never see it coming. A murmur spread through the courtroom. The judge raised her hand. Order. Silence returned. Then she read the final paragraph. As long as I stay calm and tell my story, I'll walk away with almost everything. No one spoke. Not the attorneys. Not the spectators. Not even Sarah. The silence said everything. Sarah's attorney stood quickly. Your Honor, these emails may not represent my client's actual intentions. Before he could continue, Michael placed the forensic report on the podium. The digital forensic examiner has confirmed the emails originated from Mrs. Carter's account, were sent on the dates shown, and have not been altered in any way. The judge carefully reviewed the report. Then she looked back at Sarah. Mrs. Carter, this court expects honesty from every witness. Were your statements made under oath today consistent with these emails? Sarah opened her mouth, closed it again. She searched the room as if hoping someone else would answer for her. There was no answer, only the truth. For the next 30 minutes, everything changed. Michael carefully walked the judge through the timeline. The transfers into joint ownership, the financial requests, the accusation, and finally, the emails showing that much of it had been planned years before the divorce filing. Every piece fit together, like a puzzle that had finally been completed. Sarah's attorney attempted to argue that people often vent privately, that emotions change over time. But the judge wasn't focused on emotion anymore. She was focused on credibility, and credibility had collapsed. After a brief recess, everyone returned to the courtroom. Judge Brooks adjusted the papers in front of her before speaking. This court has carefully reviewed the newly admitted evidence. The emails do not merely express frustration within a marriage. They indicate advanced planning related to financial strategy and directly contradict portions of the testimony presented under oath. She paused, then continued. As a result, the court gives significantly less weight to the plaintiff's testimony regarding her motivations and financial claims. Sarah stared at the floor. Her attorney quietly closed his notebook. The judge continued. The requested division of assets is denied as submitted. The court orders an equitable redistribution based on the documented financial contributions of both parties. The request for extended spousal support is denied. The ownership of the residence shall remain subject to revised distribution. And regarding the family dog, a faint smile appeared on the judge's face. Based on the evidence presented regarding primary care responsibilities, Max will remain with Mr. Carter. For the first time in months, I smiled, not because I had won, but because the truth had finally been heard. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered near the entrance. I ignored every microphone, every camera, every question. I wasn't interested in celebrating. There are no real winners in a divorce, only people trying to rebuild what's left of their lives. As I reached my car, Michael caught up with me. So, what's next? I looked up at the sky, then smiled. I start over. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with peace. Months later, I sold the house, moved to a smaller place, started volunteering at a local community center on weekends. I spent more time with my family, more time with friends, and every evening, Max greeted me at the front door with the same excitement he always had. Life wasn't the same, but it was honest. And sometimes, that's even better. As for Sarah, I never saw her again. I don't know where life took her. And honestly, I stopped wondering. Because healing doesn't begin when someone apologizes. It begins when you stop waiting for one. Moral of the story: life has a way of revealing the truth, even when it takes longer than we'd like. Lies can create temporary victories. Manipulation can fool people for a while, but integrity has something deception never will: time. Sooner or later, the truth finds its voice. And when it does, it speaks louder than any lie ever could. Outro. If this emotional story kept you watching until the very end, Thank you for spending your time with Leon Drama Stories. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another unforgettable story of betrayal, justice, redemption, and hope. Now, tell us in the comments, if you were the judge in this case, would you have made the same decision? Or do you think Sarah deserved a second chance? We read as many of your comments as possible, and your thoughts might inspire our next story. Until next time, take care of yourself, trust wisely, and remember, one piece of truth can change an entire life.